What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. We are wrapping up the WNBA season today and talking a little bit about NIL. But first, I hope you've had a great week. I'm a little bit under the weather myself, so my bad for sounding like Roscoe from Martin. Take your vitamins, wash your hands, and don't touch your face. Now, you know what would make me feel better? If you subscribed here and to my blog, The Show Notes, where you can find all kinds of cool stuff. The information is located in the literal show notes of this episode if you're interested in doing that. Most famously on there, I put out a weekly sports watch guide to help you keep up with everything that's going on in the sports world. I tell you what's on, where to find it, and include some interesting information about the games. You can also find my predictions for this NBA season there too, which will be fun to revisit at some point. Anyways, let's talk about the W. The New York Liberty, one of the OG WNBA franchises, finally won their first WNBA title. Now, all in all, it was a great series. It went the distance. And of the 5 games, game 2 was the only one decided by more than 5 points. 2 incredibly talented, evenly matched teams that put on a show. At the end of a season, when you're exhausted and you're facing off against the same team for the 1 millionth time, things are going to get ugly, and they certainly did. But if it's going to be ugly, it better be close, which it was, so you really can't ask for more than that. In my mind, going into that game, if the Liberty didn't win, then they were going to look like a completely different organization next season. So much has been put into getting them to this point. They were the best team from wire to wire all season long. There was all this hype. They're playing at home that it would have been a franchise-altering failure to lose. That feeling only got stronger as the game played out. They got down early, and I was like, uh-oh. But to their credit, they fought back and took the lead, which is a big difference from last year's team and this year's team. I think last year they would have folded. But they take the lead, then they give it up again with a minute left in regulation, and you're getting flashbacks to game 1 when they blew an 18-point lead, and Stewie missed a big free throw that let it go to overtime. Here she is again at the line with the chance to tie it with 38 seconds left, and she missed both free throws. 84% from the line for her career, and she missed both. At this point, this is legacy-defining stuff. As great as Stewie is, and she's carried teams to titles before, but to choke for the second time in this series in the middle of another bad shooting performance after what she did in Game 4 last year against the Aces, we might have had to have some tough conversations. And not just about her, Sabrina Ionescu, my goodness, 1 for 19, the audacity to keep shooting. I don't know whether to compliment her or hate on her. It was impressive in a disgusting way, like Joey Chestnut winning hot dog eating contests. Even outside of that, she had the iconic game winner in game 3, but was generally not good, including an absolutely horrendous foul at the end of game 1 that sent the game to overtime. She had a great season, looked much better as a player, but none of that was about to matter if they lost because she and Stewie were about to get memed to death. But then fate intervened, as it often does in the form of a WNBA ref, and Stewie got a chance to redeem herself from the line, and the Liberty went on to win the game and the championship in overtime, leading to an all-time great post-game rant from Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve, where she said, among many other things, quote, "This shit was stolen from us." Was the game rigged? No. Rigging a game would require refs to be at least halfway competent, and nobody who has watched a WNBA game would ever accuse them of that. They simply made a bad call and doubled down on it. I'm not sure if officials across all sports have gotten worse or if we're just more aware because of technology and we can share bad calls so easily now too, or maybe it's a combination of both things, but we have an officiating problem in general, and women's hoops, college and pro, seems to have it the worst. And credit to Liberty coach Sandy Brondello, because ESPN cameras caught her telling Stewie in the huddle before that play to embellish any contact and get the foul call because she knows the refs are trash too. And there's a human element there as well, where they're feeling the pressure of a big game in front of Liberty fans, and humans make mistakes. Stewie appeared to travel, then she barreled into Alana Smith and forced up a shot that wasn't particularly close, but thankfully for her, the whistle blew. The play was reviewed, but upheld due to Smith not being in legal guarding position, but she looked pretty legal until Stewie initiated contact. Now, what I think happened is the ref who made the call thought that Smith hit Stewie on the arm, and when they saw the replay, it looks pretty clear that didn't happen. But what are they going to do? They're going to hop on the mic in front of all those people and be like, no, sorry. No, they're going to bring up the legal guarding position thing, which is more subjective. So Stewie, to her credit, hits the free throws. And look, the Lynx probably do win the game and the championship if that foul isn't called or if it's overturned and they do a jump ball. I'm sure it was basically impossible to lock back in mentally after that. And they did have a chance to win it at the end of regulation after that, but the decision-making on that play was less than ideal, and it was more of the same in overtime as they just kind of rolled over. You have to win or lose with your stars, and when they went away from Fee, they struggled. She didn't take her first shot in overtime until nearly 4 minutes had passed. That is unacceptable. You can never point to one thing in a loss, but I have to at least underline that. What's great for the Liberty is that as time goes on, fewer and fewer people will care about how they won. We'll probably get to a point where someone starts arguing that Sabrina should have been finals MVP. When you win, that's how it goes. We have short memories. Now, while I might forget that, what I promise to never forget is how badly ESPN messed up the building of the narrative surrounding Game 5. This is a winner-takes-all championship game in a series that has been ridiculously close throughout. You have one franchise trying to return to the top, and doing so will make them the winningest franchise in league history versus a team that's been here since the beginning, but is trying to finally break through after heartbreak, and we have no idea which one will win. Instead of going with that angle, it felt more like a coronation for the Liberty. It's one thing if this was Game 3 and New York had won the first 2 games convincingly, but going into the final game of a close series, why are you doing that? Some of the stuff, especially around the former Liberty players, I didn't mind. I think the league and its media partners do need to figure out a way to give these history lessons and honor the past. But I thought we all decided we'd had enough Jason Sudeikis for 7 lifetimes after Game 1. And then you've got Rebecca Lobo and Ryan Ruocco on the call. Look, we've all got our biases. I try to give some leeway for that because if I were in the same position, you'd definitely have some complaints about me. But this has been season after season with them, and with the Liberty being on national TV so much, my patience is gone. Rebecca was the first player allocated to the Liberty way back. She quite clearly, and understandably so, loves the organization. I just don't want to feel that in the middle of every game. And Ruocco might be even worse than her. This man's initial gut reaction for any call that went against the Liberty was to hop to their defense. It was grating. And to top it all off, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert thought it was a good idea to wear this outfit that had the New York City skyline on it for some reason. I have to hand it to her. She's got a knack for utterly absurd trophy presentation moments. All of this left a much more sour taste in my mouth than the blown call. Everyone involved has had a whole season to learn, hey, maybe we don't have to crown anybody prematurely and should just let things play out instead, but they can't help themselves. So yeah, it's no wonder people are saying it's rigged since this terrible call favored the team that you were trying to force on us. Now, in spite of all that, I already miss it dearly. There were very obvious growing pains in the league this season, but it was still incredible, and it looks like the offseason is setting up to be exciting as well. Things are going to look wildly different next year. There are 5 coaching vacancies right now. The Wings, Sky, Dream, Sparks, and Mystics all need a head coach. Sun coach Stephanie White's status is up in the air too. She could return to Connecticut, but her name has been linked to several of these positions. And interestingly enough, the Fever job, which is not officially open as of this recording, so good luck, Christy Sides. The draft lottery takes place in a couple weeks on November 17th, so we'll have an idea of what those teams are going to do with their picks. And a couple of weeks after that, we've got the expansion draft for the Golden State Valkyries on December 2nd. I would think the teams would want to have head coaches in place to help decide which players to protect in the draft by that point, but I don't know, especially since some of these coaching changes haven't made a ton of sense to me, so I will not pretend to understand the logic behind any of their moves. And as expected, the players opted out of the CBA, so we have to keep an eye on what happens with that. There could be a work stoppage, but I think it's in everybody's best interest for that not to take place and to continue to build off this momentum they created this season and the seasons leading up to it, but we shall see. Speaking of people who need a new collective bargaining agreement or a collective bargaining agreement at all, NIL has seemingly claimed another victim in Virginia men's basketball coach Tony Bennett, who retired out of the blue with the season about to start here shortly. It was so shocking because he's a younger guy that I was concerned that he had a health thing going on, and I'm glad it's not that. He pretty much said that he can't operate in this era with NIL and the transfer portal. And look, I absolutely hated watching his team play basketball. It was like watching paint dry, but he did win a national championship by boring people to death. And he seems by all accounts to be a good guy and did say at his press conference that he believes athletes deserve to be paid. He just wants there to be rules, which I believe any reasonable person agrees with, is one reason why I think there need to be contracts. I saw someone complaining today that they're done with college basketball because with all the player movement, it's too much like the NBA. But no, the NBA actually pays players directly to play basketball and doesn't let them jump around every single year because there are contracts. So I agree with Tony's points in general, but it's always interesting to me when guys like him or Nick Saban come out with this stuff, and it's almost always directed at the athletes. Like, where's the smoke for your opposing coaches who are recruiting your players away while they're on your roster with the promise of NIL money or playing time or whatever? I guarantee 90% of kids aren't entering the portal without a strong idea of where they're headed next. Or where's the smoke for the real villain in all this, the NCAA? I've said this a million times, but they let this happen on purpose so that it would fail. They saw it coming. They should have had a plan, but chose not to because this is what they want to happen. How many active coaches have spoken out about that or about these people in the NIL game who are taking advantage of these kids? ESPN just dropped that story about Kendrick Perkins' company that essentially operates as Sally Mae for student athletes. And I don't recall seeing any coach going on the record about that. As always, the term student athlete is in heavy quotation marks. And don't even get me started on the differences between how NIL works for men athletes versus women athletes. But again, rare to hear these coaches come out while they're still in the business and speak out against it. Instead, you get them after the fact when they have stopped being able to win within the way the system operates. So they leave and it comes off as this sour grapes type of deal. Like you were cool with a bullshit system when it worked in your favor, but now that it's not, you want to leave and complain. Which I imagine is what the NCAA is counting on. It could be a problem if a Nick Saban raises these issues when he's on top of the coaching world winning national championships, but it carries just a little bit less weight if he waits until he's not as consistently great to start sounding the alarm. And that little bit less weight that it carries allows the scales of public perception to be tipped towards blaming the athletes, which is easy because athletes taking advantage of the system is the new thing. We're desensitized to the NCAA and the coaches doing it because they've been doing it forever. So I don't know, just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Good luck in retirement to Tony Bennett. Again, glad he's healthy. And hopefully we see fewer basketball games where the teams struggle to score a point per minute. All right, that will do it for this week's episode. Going to keep it short and sweet. Go get me some chicken noodle soup. But thank you again for watching, listening, rating, subscribing, reviewing, and sharing. Hope you have a fantastic week, and I will catch you later.